Hi, I'm Eric Hutchinson. I'm the principal broker and owner of Hutchinson Realty, and this is video 14 of the Negotiating Your Next Home video series. We've got lots of other videos in the series, and so I hope that you'll watch those. We are finishing up the Arkansas real estate contract today. We're going to be talking about the last item, number 36 on the Arkansas real estate contract, which is the expiration date. And so it's a really important thing. It's what keeps the Arkansas real estate contract active before the seller signs the contract, and there's an expiration time, and after that time it expires. And so we're going to be talking about that a little bit. We're also going to be talking about how we should use that expiration paragraph to maybe your advantage as a buyer, and how much leverage do you have using that. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So, what you see on your screen here is the item number 36, which is the expiration time. And this is on the last page, page 12 of the Arkansas real estate contract. And this is where the buyer says, hey, my offer is good until this time frame. Okay. And the seller is supposed to respond within this time frame. Now, sometimes the seller doesn't respond in that time frame and the offer expires, and the buyer is no longer obligated. Even if the seller signs the contract, they're really not obligated if they sign after the expiration time period. And so many times realtors have to go in and change the expiration time period and have everybody initial that, or the seller needs to counter the expiration time period just to make sure that the buyer agrees to the seller accepting the contract after the expiration time period. It's a little bit confusing, but it's really important because as a buyer, you want to get a response back from the seller, and you don't want to leave that offer open for days. Usually the buyer wants to know within hours or at least within 24 hours. But sometimes in this market, that doesn't happen. Many times the seller wants to put the house on the market and see how many offers they get within a few days. And so sometimes offers come in quickly, and the buyer says, I want to hear something within a few hours. And sometimes the seller agrees to that, and sometimes they don't agree with that. And so let's talk about that real briefly. If you are a buyer in this market that we're currently in, it is a seller's market. Many times when a house goes on the market, there is a mad rush to make offers on this property because we have low inventories. So if you are a buyer and you are interested in the property, I would encourage you, if I was your realtor, I would say, hey, the sooner you make the offer, the better. And you say, well, Eric, they said in the multiple listing service that the seller's not going to really consider offers or look at offers until, 2 more days, or until Sunday. It's Friday and it's going to be Sunday before they're going to respond. So let me just tell you that just because the multiple listing service or the listing agent says that the seller is going to review offers on a particular date does not mean that the seller is not going to accept an offer until that time. So as realtors, we have to present offers legally and ethically as soon as we possibly can. So sometimes it's not feasible for us to present offers immediately, but I will tell you that I strive to get it to my sellers as soon as I possibly can, like within an hour. I mean, I try to get it to them very quickly, and I will email it directly from my phone to the seller. Now, the seller may have indicated to me and asked me to advertise that they were not going to really respond to anything until maybe 2 days later or something. But sellers sometimes change their minds. And so, you as a buyer, if you are wanting to make an offer on a house, I always encourage you to do it immediately. And your offer may be so good, it may actually tempt the seller to accept your offer before they have advertised that they're going to review offers. Ultimately, it's the seller's decision. And the realtor may influence them or may make recommendations, but it's ultimately the seller's choice. So if you're the buyer and you like this particular house that you're going to make an offer on, then make an offer, your best offer, as soon as possible. Now, but when should you make that offer expire? So this is a little bit of a school of thought, and you need to talk to your realtor about this and make sure that you guys are on the same page. Some buyers feel like, hey, I'm going to only give them a few hours to respond. And depending on how good your offer is would be depending on whether or not the seller would respond to it within that time frame. The seller may think that their property is going to get multiple offers and they just want to wait several days to find out how many showings they're going to get and how many offers they're going to have on the table. If the seller feels strongly about that and you make your offer expire within a few hours, that means that your offer is no longer valid after it expires. And the seller may just wait until the days until the several days had passed, and then they may re-look at your offer, or they may not look at your offer, but your offer is no longer valid after that expiration time period. Now, they could counter your offer and encounter this item 36 and therefore extending the expiration time period. But until you sign that counter, the offer is no longer valid. So I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit confusing, and there can be some sticky situations. So recently, I had a deal where an offer, I'm sorry, or a house went on the market at night. And the next morning, my buyer said, "Hey, come to the house and bring your laptop. We're going to make an offer." And we were the first ones to make an offer. And we gave them 3 hours to respond. But there were three other offers that came in on the table before our 3 hours. And the listing agent called me and said, "Hey, Eric, you and one other offer is very, very close. And does your buyer want to change their offer, make it higher?" And we did. We actually made our offer higher, but he did get back with me within that 3 hour time period. But the seller could have chosen to wait, and my offer would have expired. But they did. They responded to our offer and said, "Hey, we're going to make a decision on these other offers. Do you want to change your offer?" So here's what we did: we withdrew our offer and we resubmitted another offer that was higher. And so we withdrew it. And you can withdraw your offer before the expiration time period and before the seller accepts it. Now, if the seller accepts your offer, too late. You can't withdraw your offer. You're already legally bound. So to my left, you see the signatures here that this is page 12. So this is where the buyer signs and where the seller signs. So in between the expiration time period and the very bottom part of page 12, which we'll talk about in just a second, is the signature lines where the buyer and the seller would sign, making you under contract. But if the offer has expired, then you have to deal with that either in a seller's counter or a general addendum, or you have to scratch through the expiration time period, have everybody initial, because that's what makes the contract valid. Both the buyer and the seller agreeing, and them agreeing within the expiration time period. So you might want to talk to your realtor about whether or not you want to try to put pressure on the seller to respond. I will tell you, if your offer is good and maybe you're offering several $1,000s above the list price, if the seller considers it a really good offer, if you give them too much time, then there's no pressure for them to sign your deal. So, again, talk to your realtor about whether or not you want to try to put pressure on the seller to respond. But ultimately, if I represent the seller, I'm like, "Look, you're holding the cards. It is unlikely that the buyer that makes this offer that wants you to respond within a few hours, that they're not going to be interested tomorrow. Because if they made an offer today, they're probably going to be interested tomorrow. And so if you want to wait to see if multiple offers come in, that's your prerogative in this market." So anyway, those are conversations that I might have with my seller. But if I'm a buyer and the buyer really wants to try to get a response back from the seller quickly, then I might say, "Well, go ahead and make it expire quickly." But keep in mind that if the seller doesn't respond, your offer expires and they may just let it go and go with another offer. So that's one of those things that you need to talk with your realtor about. It's a little bit of a school of thought, but ultimately it's your decision as a buyer. And it's also your decision as a seller, whether or not you want to accept an offer within the expiration time period. So now, the only way to prove that a contract has been presented to a seller is for the seller to initial at the bottom of page 12, saying that they've either rejected the offer or they've countered the offer. So either the seller is going to accept, reject, or counter a real estate contract. And as realtors, we need to be able to prove that the offer was presented and the seller has either accepted, rejected, or countered. If they accept it, they're going to sign the signature page in between here. But at the very bottom of page 12, if they don't accept the offer, they're either going to reject it or counter it. And you can see that option. There's also another little blank down there that says buyer has been informed that of a notification of existing real estate contract addendum. That is when there's already a contract on the table that has been accepted by the seller. So if you are a buyer and you get one of these back and the seller has signed the contract, you're like, yay, they've accepted my offer. But then the little notification of existing real estate contract addendum box is checked down here. That means that the seller already accepted a contract and you are a backup contract to the first contract that's on the table. So talk to your realtor about that. I will tell you that there's really, in my opinion, not a downside to being a backup offer for a property, because if the first buyer gets a home inspection or they just back out for whatever reason, you are in the number 2 slot or the number 3 slot, depending if there's any other offers before you or any other contracts signed by the seller before yours. So this little addendum, the notification of existing contract, tells you what place that you're in. So anyway, it's just an interesting scenario there. A lot of buyers don't want their offers to be backup offers, but in my opinion, you never know what's going to happen to that first offer. You may be in second place and then the house doesn't go back on the market. You fall right into first place if the first offer backs out or the first contract backs out of the deal. So just something for you to keep in mind. So I hope this information's been helpful to you. I hope you've enjoyed discussing this with me. You can always reach out to me at info@hutchrealty.com, or you can message me from this video. So would love to get you connected with one of our realtors. We've got 16 realtors that would love to, any one of them would love to help you in your next real estate transaction. So hope you have a good day. Hope you enjoy the spring flowers that are currently blooming right now. And I wish you the very best. May God bless you and keep you.